It's kind of like when your arm falls asleep and you go to move it and it's just like too much effort. You just hit yourself in the face.
In this video, we will explore a few questions. 1, have they done well here? 2, is it worth $700,000+, which is the amount of money they want for it? And 3, what would we change if we were to task them with building one for ourselves?
Folks, if you've ever listened to the Smoking Tire podcast, you are really going to appreciate today's sponsor, BetterHelp. I have talked about therapy extensively. I've talked about my own feelings of depression, anxiety, stress, feeling overwhelmed, right bumping up on panic attacks. And among other things, seeing a therapist over the last 10 years has really helped me. And it bums me out when people talk about the stigma behind it, but I know it's there. But you may not have the appropriate therapist in your area. You may not know where to start, or you may not want to see a therapist in person. But what you can do is start with BetterHelp. They've got over 20,000 licensed therapists in their network that are available for video conferencing, secure phone conferencing, text messaging, and more. All you have to do is go to betterhelp.com/smokingtire. That's HELP. And you can fill out a very short questionnaire that'll help BetterHelp match you with a therapist that meets your needs. If turns out you don't like that therapist, which happens, it's okay. You could switch at any time to a different therapist for free. BetterHelp has helped millions of people get through life. And sometimes you just need an objective stranger to talk to. You can't always rely on a friend, can't always rely on a family member. You don't always want to share this kind of stuff with people who know your emotional baggage. A therapist has the tools to do it, and BetterHelp has all the therapists you could ever need. So hit the link in the description or go to BetterHelp, HELP.com/smokingtire to try it today. Get that stigma out of here. But for now, enjoy today's video.
Hey folks, this is Boss. Welcome to the Volvo P1800 Cyan. And it's not just a color, it's a racing team. You may have heard of a little company called Polestar. No, not the award for Best Stripper of the Year. A former racing team acquired by Volvo, now turned into an EV brand.
Right. They went race team, Polestar, or Volvo performance team, now EV manufacturer.
Right. They took Polestar and they made it green instead of blue. And so the racing team, formerly known as Polestar, is now called Cyan, after the color of their cars. And they have built a Resto-Mod. All of these companies, from Jaguar to Bentley to Aston Martin, have learned that you can make quite a lot of money by Resto-Modding your classic designs. And everyone's taken a bit of a different approach. I like where Cyan's head is at.
Yes.
This is a P1800 coupe, but for enough money, they will make you a wagon. And by enough, I mean like
a lot.
A fuck ton of money.
Because they have to make all new molds for the whole back end, so they haven't done that yet.
Right. I don't know what it's like to have $700,000 to blow on a car, but someone out there does. The engine is a 2-liter 4-cylinder turbo. Absolutely stunning in the engine bay.
Really amazing job, considering it's a modern engine.
Yeah.
You know, this is the same one that's shared with like the S60 and the C30 and other ones, and it's like, but it looks almost period correct.
Yeah. I mean, you can always trust the Swedes to do an interior, right?
A tidy one.
A tidy
minimalist interior.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And the engine bay is very Swedish in that regard. 420 horsepower at 7,000 RPM with a 7,700 RPM redline, 356 pound-feet at 6,000 RPM, and that is at 39 pounds of boost from a Borg-Warner EFR turbo with ceramic ball bearings. Backing that up is a Hollinger 5-speed gearbox with a dog leg first, and as I will discuss while we're driving, some of the best shifter feel on the planet from this gearbox. It's exceptional. A single mass flywheel, a carbon fiber drive shaft, and a limited slip differential in the back with different ratios available.
Yeah,
choose your own adventure.
It's IRS. It's also a Hollinger diff, and yeah, they'll kind of tailor it to what you want to do.
Right. The original P1800 was a solid rear axle. This is now independent rear suspension, front and rear double wishbones, adjustable in basically every way you can adjust them. Adjust the caster, the camber, the all kinds of alignment stuff, the ride height, the stiffness, like everything.
I mean, that's the great thing about racing teams is they adjust their cars for every track, so they want that kind of adjustability.
Yes.
And they pass the savings on to you, except for the savings part.
Yeah, they pass the performance on to you. 14.2-inch front brakes from AP Racing, 13-inch rear brakes from AP Racing, manual, no ABS, and that's wrapped in some big-ass modern center-locking forged wheels. I might go with a different wheel choice, but I see what they've done here. 235/40/18 Pirellis in the front, 265/35/18 Pirellis in the rear. The weight distribution is 47 front, 53 rear. Interesting that it is actually a rear-biased weight distribution. And they've moved the entire greenhouse slightly rearward. You might not notice it at first, but if you pull up a picture of a stock 1800 to this one, it actually gives it a little more of that sporting elegance.
Yeah, I mean, it's not evident immediately, but the front axle was moved forward slightly, and so is the rear one, but then they shortened the rear deck and moved the greenhouse. So like you said, it's not that they just cut away the original body and replaced it with carbon fiber, which this body's made of carbon fiber. They adjusted it a little bit for like weight balance and look. I mean, it's pretty cool. They're like, if we're going to redo this, what would we change? But at first glance, you haven't ruined like the original design.
Right.
Very, very delicate process.
The only original parts are the parts of the steel chassis, not even all of it, some of the original steel chassis, the hood release mechanism, and the wipers. Everything else, how do you get to $700,000? Everything else is new. The interior is beautifully minimalistic and well-designed. It's not set up for me. If I was buying one, I might want my seat a little different than this. The gauges are beautifully redesigned and electronic. I can't see them because of the position of this seat, but nevertheless, here we go.
It's strange that you're too tall for this, considering the average height of Sweden is like, you know, pine tree.
Well, it's
a tall group of people.
It's the setting of this car. There's a titanium roll cage. The turning radius is actually pretty decent. There's a titanium roll cage, but it's not like my seat is up against it.
No, not at all.
It's pretty much just how someone has chosen to set this car up. Okay, here we go. Everything, all the metal is billet. The switches are really nice and hefty in your hands.
The turbo sounds. The whistle from
epic.
This side of the car is so good.
And what they've done with a lot of the inputs is they've tried to make them very linear like a race car. So you don't get a massive turbo shove at 2,500 RPM like a lot of your modern street cars. It builds and builds. I mean, how often do you get a 2-liter turbo where peak torque is at 6,000 and peak power is at 7,000? That's much more like a traditional, naturally aspirated power band. The ride is exceptional.
So good.
Right? And one of the things I didn't want to follow this person. It's a busier day than we thought up here today. One of the things I noticed from the very first second is the lightness. Because even without assisted brakes, even with a pretty heavy-duty clutch, all the inputs are pretty light and easy. The steering is electric power assist, which is kind of weird.
It is. It's a progressive ratio electric power assist. They said that they used that because they didn't want to clutter the engine bay with like a hydraulic pump and other things. You know, it could be for packaging, it could be for simplicity, I don't know.
Synchronized gearbox, so you don't have to worry about going down to first. I love this shifter.
Yeah.
there's such a difference between half throttle and full throttle. It's not like a turbo that we're used to. It really responds linearly to that throttle input.
It also felt to me when I just drove it earlier like the boost is progressive, so third gear pulls way harder than second gear.
Yeah. I love the shifter feel, but I don't know if it's because of the alignment or the suspension settings. It's actually kind of tough to keep it straight. It's fine once you're loaded up in a corner. I don't have to make a lot of adjustments here, but on the highway, I find myself micro adjusting a lot for straight. They said it's set up for canyons, which makes sense.
It sounds like authentic, you know, it doesn't sound like manufactured sound. It doesn't sound old, but God, it's got a cool little vibe to it.
I like it, it's, you know, true to itself. Oh my God, all these cars.
Many cars.
Well, they're all going left, so we'll go right. We'll go to the tighter section. One thing that's very interesting is because it's got manual brakes, you have to put more pedal pressure than you're used to, but actually that helps for left foot braking. With power brakes, modern, very boosted power brakes, you can get real jerky with your left foot braking. This could actually help you learn to be better at left foot braking.
It's got a little bit of a cushion to it because it requires so much force. Yeah.
Like at rally school, when you're learning left foot braking, they disconnect the power brakes on a lot of those cars to help you modulate that pressure better.
Yeah, if your left foot isn't used to it, it's kind of like when your arm falls asleep and you go to move it and it's just like too much effort. You just hit yourself in the face.
Now, although the steering feel is not as good as the classic 911 because it's the electric powered steering, it's really sharp, there's a lot of grip, and it's really responsive. There's a little rattle in the shifter.
Yep.
Man, it is so busy up here today.
Wow.
I'm sorry, folks. We did not anticipate the busyness today.
There was still a truck going straight. So
Yeah, no, we're gonna go this way. And unless, except for like Ferrari gated shifters, it pulls.
So many good sounds.
It pulls so hard.
Man, there's like wastegate, turbo, that angry four-cylinder kind of alpha thing going on.
Yeah.
Man, there's a lot. Sensory experience. All right.
P0 tires with a bunch of grip.
And I mean, obviously, like the build quality in here, you know, in photos at first, of course, they're gonna look picture perfect, but like the stitching is perfect.
Yeah.
Like the fitment, and I love this wool contrasted with the leather. Like they did a really cool job of, I don't know, it just feels really special and unique. Because they could have gone full leather like Singer, but they didn't. They mixed it up a little bit.
It does, and it cracks necks on the road. When you're driving around, people are staring at you. You gotta be okay with the attention. Even in LA, if you're getting this kind of attention in LA where people have sort of seen everything.
I mean, the shape is so good. It's like, it's a little wider, and then it's got the fender flares on it.
Oh, it's meaty.
So good.
It's meaty. Second gear is nice for these tighter canyons. Third and fourth are good for the, hello. Normally that person would be upset with us if we were going fast, but because you're in a Volvo, it's very charming.
They're like, oh, you're out here spreading the word of safety.
Yes.
That's what you're doing. Oppa!
Handbrake.
This is
So
such
you
a
literally
weird...
can't release the handbrake with the door closed.
We also can't release it if you have a hand.
Yeah, it's
because
not...
your hand won't fit between... You have to use two hands. One presses the button, and one lowers it from the other side.
It's really, we've gone back to it being an emergency brake more so than just a handbrake.
I mean, in an emergency, how am I grabbing this?
No, I mean like you're parking on a hill kind of emergency.
Yeah.
No, if it's an emergency, like I need to stop emergency, you're going to crash.
No, then you just use the AP brakes.
Then you just have a crash.
All right. From one, back to one. Oh, it's so good.
The power to weight is so good.
I mean, it feels like, I know it is light, it's 2,200 pounds, but it feels every like ounce of that. It's so light. Sorry, actually, it feels lighter than that. It feels so light on its toes, but not in a way that makes me feel like it's, jittering across the ground and not gripped up.
Right.
I mean, the direction changes. It's like the forces of physics cease to exist, and it just goes where you want to point it. And the suspension damping, when I took it for a drive, is so amazing. Like, it has enough body roll that you know what the car is doing.
Yeah.
But not so much that it feels old.
Right.
And then hitting these big bumps on the way up, like,
it maintains
so
traction.
good. We were hitting bump stops and stuff. Like, it is such perfect suspension damping for this kind of driving. I mean, it really is how I would want any sports car to feel.
Normally, if you had a 2,100 pound car, 2,200 pounds, it would have manual steering, right?
Yes.
So even though it was light, the steering could be relatively heavy. This, because it has the electric power steering, the steering
it
is
aids to that
also,
feeling of
yeah,
lightness. That's
yeah.
a really good point. But it's so unfortunate that the steering feel is really lacking.
Yeah, it's not as good as it could be.
You get so little feedback from the front. It's so fast. It is so fast. Brakes are strong. Oh, the bird pooped on us.
It's fast, but it's also, like, it's well behaved. Like, I drove it through the city yesterday afternoon. I drove it in some traffic, and it doesn't get hot. It's not annoying to go in and out of first gear. It idles smooth.
Yeah.
It's
because it is a modern engine.
Yeah.
It looks old and it feels older, but it's modern enough. And I mean, these folks, they know how to build this engine because they actually got the engine 5 years before the public did for the race cars. So they have a lot of R&D time in it. I can't feel the front wheels at all. And when we were driving up here, you said the on center on the highway was kind of like darty, and it's almost like you can't feel the front wheels, so the direction changes a little bit, and then you move the wheel, and it does change the direction of the car, but you don't get the resistance from the front tires. Like,
well, my micro adjustments on the highway are following the car. You know what I mean? I'm not having to make the car do that. The car is kind of doing that on its own, and I'm reacting to it.
Yeah.
I wish I had the engineering background to describe why it was doing that. Someone else's review said it's a caster issue. I'm sure it could be dialed out. If you said, hey, Volvo, give me a setup for a road trip where it was a little more relaxed, they could.
But I mean, even up here, I'm just finding there's not enough feedback from the front tires. So from center to like 4 degrees, it almost feels lazy, even though the front end is moving.
Yeah.
But it's actually just because I'm not getting any resistance.
Yeah.
So I think nothing's happening until my eyes see that hood move, which is a bummer because otherwise this car,
it's almost perfect.
From a driver's perspective, it's so good.
They've gotten so many things right with this car. And I'm going to put the window down now because it's very hot in here for audio. It does actually have air conditioning. I just don't really know how to use it, but it does have it. Those switches are nice, aren't they?
They're really nice.
Okay, so what have they done very right?
Suspension.
Yes.
Compliance damping spring rate is like exceptional.
Right. Engine, exceptional.
Yeah.
Power to weight, exceptional.
Yeah.
Attention to detail, pretty exceptional.
Yeah.
Not quite. I know Singer is the gold standard. We're not quite there, but very, very good.
Very good. Ergonomically, we should mention that when I sit here, I can only see the tack from 1500. I can't see it from 1500 to 7.
Right.
You said you can only see it from 3 to 5 because you look over the
You're
wheel.
looking through the wheel, and I'm looking over it.
Yeah.
But that's a fit thing. Like, they would make it for you. You know, they'd make you fit comfortably in the car.
True.
Is it worth $700K? Neither of us know what it's like to spend $700K on a car.
Right.
But what do you think?
I think yes, and the reason I think that is the same with this Singer Resto-Mods is we all have this love of a certain car, generation of car, whatever. We go, man, I like that. But then when you drive a new thing, You go, and then you drive the old one, you go, oh, it's just so much slower, da-da-da. Well, if you have the money to put those two worlds together, like, why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah. And it's crazy to think about it, but it would cost you more to do it yourself, and the result wouldn't be as good as what this is.
Yeah, I'm not making a carbon fiber body that's bonded to the steel structure in my garage. You know, I'm not from New Zealand. The only thing
And it's linked to the racing team. You know, it's engineered by the racing team. Which you, as a privateer, almost can't even do.
Correct.
So I actually do think it's worth the money, especially considering just the amount of work that's gone into it by people who really know what they're doing, and the fact that once you get it, there's no further engineering and development. It's just done.
The cost to pay for the number of degrees that have worked on this car is more than $700,000.
Right. And what would you change? Well, there's a couple things that are annoying to me. One, the doors don't have detents, so they don't stay open if you're on a side hill. That handbrake is in a terribly annoying place. The trunk, you need to have a stick to hold the trunk open.
There's no stay for it.
There's no, and there's also like nothing. You can't put anything back there because the fuel cell is back there, and that's really about the extent of it. And it's not a wagon. If it was a wagon, then
it would be ultra cool.
Then it would be the dopest shit ever.
Yeah, but I mean, just from a usability, I agree with those points. You know, I have no other notes.
Because for that much money, I don't want a race car. I want something that I can use as an actual car.
Yeah, and it's really close. Like, you know, a little support for the trunk, that's fine.
Oh, my balls.
If you could move the e-brake handle.
Yeah, like, it's crazy. Like, the things I would change are not necessarily dynamics related at all. No. They're all just last bits of usability that people who design race cars are like, handbrake, trunk, like,
they're like, oh, we don't want to mess with the handbrake. It's probably bolted to the original chassis. They're like, great, that's fixed. That's done. But then when they put the seat and the roll cage in, it makes it a little bit more
They need the Volvo streetcar team to get involved, like, a little bit. Yeah. But thank you to Cyan for letting us have a go. We are the only people so far that have been allowed to test this car unsupervised. Mm-hmm. They were very nervous. It was only because I own Westside Collector Car Storage that they let me have it. They're like, but where will it stay overnight? And then they saw the shop and went, oh, this will be fine.
This or the Galpin Vault would have been acceptable.
So shout out to Cyan and Volvo and everybody involved in this project. It's very, very cool. They have sold a few of them, actually, so you may see one out and about. They'll paint it any color you want.
Yeah.
And, the other thing I would change is maybe an older school wheel design. I think the wheels, while functional, don't necessarily match the styling of the car.
It makes it look a little bit more like Optima Streetcar Invitational, kind of Resto-Mod look. Yeah. I agree. And even with the small sidewalls, the fact that it was so comfortable was impressive, but it just looks... The wheels look like 2 inches too big.
It's not even the shape, it's the size of the wheel. It's literally the design of the face, like something a little more old school that would make you look at it and go, is that old or is that new? Right now, I know it's new because of the wheels.
Yeah.
So that's something that actually, not to beat a dead horse, Singer does particularly well. When you see a Singer going by, at first you go, is that old or is that? And then you see the scripting on the back and you go, oh no, I know what that is now.
Yeah.
So I want to be tricked a little more into thinking it's old. But that's just a personal taste. Anyway, thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
And remember, always fight your tickets. Use code TST10 on the Off the Record app available in the Android and iOS store, or go to offtherecord.com/TST.